We all know the Baltics are quiet and cobblestoned, but Lithuania also hides shifting sand seas on the Curonian Spit that once swallowed whole villages, while Gediminas Tower still guards the capital, born from a legendary iron wolf. In this video, I'll show you Lithuania, from Trakai's island castle and living Karaim kitchens to the fragrant Palanga Botanical Park and the vast Nemunas Delta. The Curonian Spit is home to some of Europe's tallest shifting sand dunes, where wind-carved ridges tower over the slender tongue of land that separates the Baltic Sea from the Curonian Lagoon. Do you know the dunes here once swallowed entire villages, forcing residents to move inland, while trees froze mid-lean, preserved like wooden fossils beneath drifting sand? Walk Nida's crescent beaches, and you can feel centuries of wind shaping the landscape, each grain carrying stories from the sea. From the Parnidis dune, you can trace the curve of the spit and watch fishing boats slip through the lagoon's narrow channels toward Klaipėda. The Spit is a living museum of migration, where birds funnel along the land bridge during autumn and spring. Fishermen villages like Jodkranta are stitched to the dunes by wooden pathways, their stilted houses leaning against salt-laden breezes. Ancient amber washes ashore here, caught between seaweed and sand, linking myth to cargo of prehistoric trade routes. Cycling from Nida toward the Russian border, the path arcs between pine forests and open sand, demonstrating how one habitat dissolves into another. Local legend tells of sand giants and lost churches, but science tells of shoreline drift and currents that sculpted this peninsula over millennia. The Curonian Lagoon's glassy surface reflects reed beds where beavers and eagles find refuge, a quiet contrast to the sea's restless edge. Crossing by ferry near Klaipėda, you can see how the Spit threads the region together, a living seam between inland life and the open Baltic. Today, UNESCO protection balances conservation with visitors who hike the dunes, study migrating birds, and collect amber under strict rules. At sunset, the sand turns honey gold, and the wind writes ephemeral patterns that will be gone by morning. Each step on the Curonian Spit is a footnote in a slow shifting story of geologic culture and survival. Soon we'll leave the Spit's narrow horizon to follow traders' routes into Klaipėda's harbor and the forests beyond. The Curonian Spit's secrets are subtle but persistent, and each grain of sand keeps a map of where the land has been. Gediminas Tower crowns a hill above Vilnius, its red brick silhouette, a symbol of Lithuania's endurance. From this single surviving tower of the upper castle, visitors can trace centuries of conquest, fire, and rebirth. The tower's foundations date back to the 13th century, while the current masonry reflects 15th century reconstructions. Inside, a compact museum preserves maps, flags, and the very tools used to shape the city's fate. Climb the steep path, and you'll find panoramas that stitch together Baroque churches, narrow cobbles, and the winding Nemunas River. On clear days, the view seems to compress time, showing where medieval walls once enclosed a growing capital. Legends cling to Gediminas like ivy. One tells of a dream where an iron wolf howled beneath the future city. That dream, according to folklore, inspired Grand Duke Gediminas to found Vilnius and establish it as a seat of power. The tower also witnessed moments of modern defiance, from uprisings to the hoisting of Lithuania's tricolor after regaining independence. Standing here, you can almost feel the hush before proclamations and the echo of bannermen marching down to the square. Architecturally modest, the tower's power comes from place. Its position over the old town anchors stories in stone. That connection pulls you down the hill toward the cathedral, streets where merchants and monks once crossed paths. Local guides will point out plaques and spirit marks hidden on the tower walls, small remnants of private histories. Each scratch and inscription is a whisper from craftsmen, soldiers, and lovers who paused here between battles and baptisms. From Gediminas Tower, the city's skyline unrolls into neighborhoods where Soviet-era blocks meet gilded cupolas and unplanned conversation of eras. Beneath Vilnius Old Town's Baroque facades runs one of Europe's most intricate networks of medieval courtyards and hidden passages. Do you know that some of these courtyards hide secret gardens and stairway, once used by merchants and revolutionaries? Push through a narrow gate and you can stumble into courtyards that feel frozen in the 17th century. Stone inscriptions, Faded coats of arms and iron-studded doors whisper stories of guilds that shaped the city's trade. The cathedral square may claim the spotlight, but it's the side streets where Vilnius reveals its restless soul. Twisting alleys like Pilis and Literatu connect churches, bookstores, and tiny ateliers that have survived wars and occupations. Look up, and you'll find an eclectic skyline where onion domes, Gothic spires, and Soviet silhouettes share the view. At dusk, lanterns ignite, and the old town's stones absorb stories, making each step feel like a page turned. Crossing from the historical center toward the river, the pulse of contemporary Vilnius begins to quicken. In a single walk, you move from medieval market squares to modern galleries that repurpose forgotten warehouses ceases. Vilnius Old Town is not a museum, but a living palimpsest where past and present negotiate every day. Walk with a local elder, and you'll hear tales that thread personal memories into the city's grand history. By the time you leave, Vilnius Old Town has quietly rearranged how you think about time, memory, and belonging. Ventas Rumba is not tall, but it claims a startling title: the widest waterfall in Europe, stretching nearly 250 meters across at its peak. Do you know that Ventas Rumba can span wider than some small lakes while dropping only about 2 meters, creating a rare low but immense cascade that defies expectations? At first glance, it looks more like a silver curtain laid over the Venta River than the thunderous funnels many imagine when they think of waterfalls falls. In spring, when meltwater rises, that curtain swells into a broad, roaring sheet that turns the whole town of Kuldega into an island of mist and sound. The falls have shaped local life for centuries, guiding trade routes, inspiring painters and poets, and even dictating the placement of bridges and houses along the riverbanks. Walk the wooden quays and narrow streets, and you'll feel how human history curls around that persistent line of falling water. Geologists point to ancient bedrock and long-ago river shifts for the waterfalls while fishermen remember when salmon rounds met this white barrier and the catch changed with the seasons. Photographers come for the sheer horizontal sweep, a panorama of moving water that demands a wide lens and a patient eye. At dusk, light stretches along the lip of the falls, and the whole river can look like a sheet of burnished silver, reflecting the town's red roofs and ancient bridge. Yet Ventas Rumba's true magic is how it links to what comes next on the map of the Baltic world. A reminder that water carves roots both physical and cultural. From the gentle, wide roar of the Venta, we'll turn toward the coast, tracing a path to wind-sculpted dunes and the whispering pines of the Curonian Spit, where the sea keeps writing new edges on the land. One of the world's longest drifting sand ridges, the Curonian Spit, twists along the Baltic with migrating dunes that swallow forests and reshape coastline. Do you know the Curonian Spit hides the largest concentration of sun-bleached amber on the Baltic shore and a ghostly forest where trees grow sideways beneath the sand? From that living coastline, Lithuania funnels inland along rivers to Kaunas, where Old Town sits, where the Nemunas and Neris meet. Here, medieval stone meets carved Baroque facades and narrow cobbles that remember merchants, soldiers, and student poets. Kaunas Old Town is compact but dense with stories. Its town hall crowned by a slender spire locals call the White Swan. That unexpected shift from medieval lanes to bold 20th century geometry gives Kaunas a rare double personality in one short walk. Evenings in Old Town turn cinematic as lamplight pools on facades and violin strains slip from tavern doors. Listen closely, and you'll hear stories layered into the mortar of resistance, revival, and a city that stitches its past into everyday life. Follow an alley, and you'll find small museums and workshops where hand-bound books and amber mosaics keep traditions alive. From here, it's easy to continue east toward Vilnius, or north to the Curonian Dunes, as Kaunas has always been a crossroads of roots and ideas. Tviskes Manor sits on the edge of Lithuania's rare black alder wetlands, a landscape type preserved in only a handful of places worldwide. Do you know that the Curonian Spit's drifting dunes and the inland peat bogs shaped the manor's history and the legends whispered by its oak corridors? Built by a river bend that once powered a flour mill, the manor's red brick wings and carved eaves still carry the fingerprints of Baltic craftsmen. For generations, the estate acted as both a refuge for artists and a crossroads for smugglers who used the marshes to hide contraband, according to local lore. Inside, faded wall murals reveal maps and motifs that echo pagan rites, an uneasy reminder of the region's layered belief systems. The manor's cellars are rumored to connect to an underground passage stretching toward the neighboring village, tying this house to the community beyond its hedges. It is a place where natural wonder and human history clasp hands, inviting visitors to trace the seams between marsh and mansion and to wonder what the next chapter will reveal. Every season here writes a new page. Silver birch birthing light in spring, bog flowers sizzling in summer, ochre decay in autumn, quiet snow that softens every sound. And when you leave Tviskes Manor, you carry more than images. You carry a sense of how Lithuania's remote landscapes shaped lives, legends, and the very rooms you just walked through. Palanga Botanical Park is a living museum of arboreal giants, where winding alleys hide an unexpected mix of native pines and exotic specimens. Many trees here predate the 20th century, their trunks threaded with the stories of fishermen, nobility, and summer visitors. Sculpted lawns and secret groves open onto ponds that mirror the sky and conceal herons and restless carp beneath their glassy surface. A delicate Japanese-style garden offers an unexpected whisper of the Far East, complete with stone lanterns and carefully pruned maples. In spring, the park becomes a corridor of scent, as lilacs and rhododendrons announce themselves to anyone following the shaded paths. Strolls here often end at the elegant Tviskes Palace, whose amber-filled galleries link botanical wonder to cultural history. From the palace lawns, the route unfurls toward Palanga Pier and the wide Baltic beach, so the green heart of the park spills straight into sea air. Local curators guard small treasures, pressed leaves, centuries-old garden plants, and a surprisingly rich amber collection tucked nearby. Quiet benches invite long listening, and if you time it right, you can hear the distant creak of nets and gulls from the fishing harbor. Paths loop and reconnect, so that every corner leads you back to something new: a sculpted fern, a sunlit clearing, or a hidden bridge. The park is not just scenery, but a living archive, where seasons rewrite the same pages in shades of green, heat and frosty. Because Palanga blends cultivated beauty with coastal wildness, a walk here feels like crossing between two different worlds. Beneath the silver birches of Zemaitija National Park lies Chepkeliai Marsh, one of Europe's last sprawling raised bogs, its peat layers preserving 10,000 years of history. Do you know Chepkeliai's quaking bogs float on a living mat of vegetation, so precarious that even mature pines appear to drift? This mosaic of peatlands, shallow lakes, and reed-fringed pools acts like a giant sponge, regulating water across the park and feeding the larger Plateliai Lake. Hidden among the sedges are carnivorous sundews and bladderworts, plants that evolved to drink insects to survive in nutrient-starved waters. Birdsong here is a rare archive. Cranes, black storks, and the elusive ruff use the wetlands as breeding grounds and seasonal way stations. Conservationists count rare butterfly and dragonfly species that trace their life cycles to this exact interplay of open water and peat. The wetlands thus become both laboratory and cathedral, where science and silence meet to reveal the fragile mechanics of a landscape that sustains people and wildlife. From the bog's humming center, the narrative threads lead outward, to fishermen on Plateliai, to oak groves along winding trails, and to villages that still mark seasonal festivals by the water. Exploring Zemaitija's wetlands is to move through time, to feel the slow work of water and plant life that built the land one peat layer at a time. And as these marshes recover, they teach us how landscapes can be healed when communities, scientists, and laws converge around a common purpose. Medvegalis Hill in Lithuania rises like a double crown of ancient earth, where rare primeval oak groves cling to twin summits, preserving pollen records that trace climate shifts for millennia. Do you know that Medvegalis Hill hides underground spring-fed peat pockets that create tiny microclimates, allowing plant species found nowhere else in the Baltic states to survive? Local legends speak of stone circles and forgotten ramparts, and archaeologists have found traces of wooden fortifications dating back to the Iron Age. Climbing its grassy slopes reveals vistas where river valleys stitch the landscape, and on clear days, you can follow pale sunlight to distant windows of the Curonian Lagoon. But Medvegalis is not just history and botany. It is a living laboratory where lichen communities chart air purity in ways modern machines can only mimic. Birdsong here contains migrant species that pause too briefly elsewhere, and moths recorded on misty nights include subspecies first cataloged right on these ridges. Walk along its spine, and you will cross invisible lines between ancient trade routes, where travelers once traded amber for salt, and myths intertwined with maps. That connection shows how a single hill can influence conservation thinking from inland highlands all the way to the Baltic shore. As night falls, the silhouette of Medvegalis frames constellations once used by sailors and shepherds, and local storytellers still name stars by referencing the hill. Tomorrow we will follow those stories down the slopes and along the old ridgelines to a neighboring hamlet where an unexpected artifact waits. Stay with us to uncover one relic that rewrites a local map. From the Baroque lanes of Vilnius, we cross to Trakai, where islands float like time capsules on Lake Galv. Trakai Island Castle rises from the water in red brick, one of the rare medieval island fortresses in northern Europe. Built by Grand Duke Kęstutis and rebuilt by Vytautas the Great, its towers once commanded trade routes and legends. Beneath the battlements, a mysterious legend whispers of a drowned town beneath the lake's mirror, still visible in certain light. Walk the causeway or glide by boat, and the castle's reflection seems to float, blurring history and water. Inside, timbered halls and reconstructed chambers reveal the life of dukes, craftsmen, and soldiers who shaped the Grand Duchy. Less than 30 kilometers from Vilnius, Trakai became a refuge for diverse peoples, notably the Karaim community brought here from Crimea. By afternoon, families picnic on the island shores while swans trace ceremonial paths in the shallows. Visit during winter, and the frozen lakes render the island fortress remote and crystalline, footsteps crunching on centuries of snow. Or come during summer festivals, when folk singers and costume-clad reenactors make history pulse like a living drum. Ventspils seaside shelters one of the few intact coastal dune forests in the Baltic, a living barrier that glows silver at dawn. Do you know that the rolling sands of Ventspils hide migrating ghost crabs and rare orchids that bloom only in saline dunes? Walks along the shore reveal wind-sculpted pines and grassy hummocks that shift their shapes with every season. Local fishermen still follow tidal maps drawn generations ago, linking this coast to the old Hanseatic trading routes and to the port towns we visited earlier. The beach here is unusually wide and hard-packed, making it one of the few Baltic stretches where early automobiles once raced the surf. Beyond the sand, a mosaic of salt marshes acts as a nursery for migratory birds that travel from the Arctic to the Mediterranean. That light also marks the point where coastal journeys continue to neighboring capes, inviting travelers to follow the coastline farther north. Ventspils Seaside is not just scenery. It's a living classroom where ecology, history, and community meet on every grain of sand. And once you leave the beach, those same tides carry stories inland, connecting the seaside to forests, ponds, and the wider Baltic world we are uncovering. The Nemunas River Delta is Lithuania's largest wetland, a maze of reed beds, canals, and seasonally flooded meadows. Each spring and autumn, the delta becomes one of Europe's most important bird migration hubs, hosting thousands of waterfowl and waders. The island of Rusny sits at the heart of this wetland, dotted with traditional wooden houses and low-lying pastures. Local fishermen still navigate narrow channels in flat-bottomed boats, keeping alive centuries-old crafts, while beavers and otters slip silently alongside. Ventas at the delta's edge hosts one of Lithuania's oldest ornithological stations, where rings record the astonishing journeys of tiny migrants. In spring dawns here are thick with cranes and geese, while raptors wheel above reed beds, searching for fish and small mammals. The delta's complex hydrology has been shaped by shifting river channels and ancient human-made polders, creating a patchwork of habitats. Seasonal floods replenish nutrients, supporting rare orchids and marsh plants that survive in isolated pockets of nutrient-rich silt. Photography and birdwatching hides allow close views without disturbing nests, and local guides lead silent dawn excursions into mist-wrapped channels. Conservation efforts, backed by Ramsar designation and EU protection, balance traditional livelihoods with safeguarding breeding grounds for rare species. Salt-tolerant reeds filter river waters before they spill into the Curonian lagoon, linking the delta's ecology directly to the famous sand spits beyond. From here, the landscape narrows into the Curonian Spit, where wind-sculpted dunes and fishermen's tales mingle with the sound of waves. Along the Baltic shore, a 98-kilometer stretch of sand called the Curonian Spit drifts and shifts, its migrating dunes and whispering pines forming landscapes found almost nowhere else in Europe. Do you know the Spit hides singing sands and amber-strewn beaches that have trapped sailors' stories and secrets for centuries? From the Spit's wind-sculpted villages, the road curves to Klaipėda's red brick harbor, where the scent of smoked fish leads to Palanga's Amber Museum and the Playful Pier. Here, fishermen's tales connect to the small island of Trakai, where a fairy tale castle floats on Lake Galv, a medieval stronghold that tells of Grand Dukes and Karaim cooks who brought their unique pastries, kibinai, to Lithuanian tables. From Trakai, the story threads to Vilnius, whose Baroque spires and the self-declared Republic of Ujubis reveal a city of contradictions and creative rebellion. Walking Vilnius's cobblestones, you can feel the echoes of centuries, from Gothic cathedrals to contemporary street art, each alley leading naturally toward the ancient mounds of Kernave, Lithuania's buried capital. Kernave's sacred hills open into the vast plains where the Hill of Crosses stands as an intimate monument. Tens of thousands of crosses, each placed by someone with a story that binds past and present. That solemn rhythm of memory flows into the quieter forests of Aukštaitija, where mirror-like lakes and wooden villages preserve folk songs and crafts passed down through generations. Northward, the Nemunas Delta is one of Europe's richest wetlands, where cranes wheel above reed beds and the water maps the lives of fishermen and conservationists alike. From those wetlands to the Soviet-era sculptures rearranged in Grūdas Park, Lithuania's landscapes keep surprising, juxtaposing nature's ancient continuity with recent complicated history. Every place in Lithuania breathes into the next. Dunes into harbors, castles into capitals, hills into forests, creating a continuous landscape of stories you can walk through. So linger on the beaches, taste the amber's honeyed light, trace the carved crosses with your eyes, and let each small wonder pull you deeper into a country that keeps revealing itself slowly, insistently, and beautifully.